Before we submitted our college applications, the popular girl in our class, the billionaire's daughter, suddenly said she could get all of us into Harvard or Yale. My parents donated several buildings to those schools. Getting you all admitted is nothing. Most of my classmates' college entrance exam scores were still a long way from those schools, but they believed her. They gave up submitting their own applications and counted on her to pull strings so they could get into college. In my last life, I realized her promise was unreliable. I immediately urged them not to give up on their applications, to keep a backup plan, and I called their parents one by one. But that infuriated the popular girl. She mocked me for being poor and said I did not understand how the upper class worked. She claimed I had ruined everyone's future. My boyfriend also snapped at me for being jealous. You're just jealous that Lissy's family is rich. You can't stand the thought of all of us going to Harvard or Yale. So what if you have good grades? You could work your whole life and still never catch up to what her family built over 3 generations. For the sake of our 3 years as classmates, I did not argue with them. But before the deadline, when I found out they still had not submitted their applications, I called the police and exposed the popular girl's fake identity. The popular girl was condemned by everyone. In despair, she jumped into a river and killed herself. My classmates all said she deserved it and thanked me for saving their futures. But at our class farewell dinner, my boyfriend poisoned my drink and the entire class watched coldly as I writhed in pain. At worst, we would have lost our chance at college. Lissy lost her life. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day the popular girl claimed she could pull strings for us. After the poison killed me in that private dining room, my boyfriend Ethan Brooks still wasn't done. He searched my body, found my phone, and called my parents. The moment they heard something had happened to me, they rushed to the restaurant without hesitation. When they saw me collapsed on the floor, blood seeping from my eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, they broke down. My mother could barely stand. My father's face went white as he reached for me with trembling hands. Ethan and the others helped them into their seats. Mr. and Mrs. Grant, please try to calm down. The ambulance is already on its way. Drink some water first. My parents had no reason to suspect them. They took the water and drank it. A few seconds later, pain tore through their chests. Then they both coughed up blood. That was when those people finally stopped pretending. Your precious daughter was poisoned by us too. She killed Lissy, so she deserves to pay for it. You two can go with her. If you want someone to blame, blame Olivia Grant for being so vicious that she dragged you into this. All 3 of us died right there. I found myself floating above the room, helpless, furious, and desperate to drag every one of them down with me. Then, in the next instant, a familiar voice rang in my ears. Wow, Lissy, was that your family's driver who dropped you off again? That was a Rolls-Royce. I stood in the corner of the classroom, staring at everything in disbelief. Only then did I realize I had been reborn. No, that was my dad, Lisa Hale said with a small smile. Not our driver. The classroom erupted. Oh my God, your dad is so good to you. He's that busy and still drives you to school himself? Lisa smiled and accepted their envy without correcting a word. But I knew she was lying. Every single word. The pain from my last life was still burned into me. I looked at her, and all I felt was hatred. Maybe she sensed it, because Lisa suddenly turned toward me. Olivia, your grades are amazing. You can probably get into a school like Harvard or Yale without my help, right? I looked away and was about to answer when Ethan cut in. Lissy, don't waste your time on her. Look at her. Even if she gets in, she won't be able to afford it. She might as well go to some cheap community college. Exactly, someone else said. She probably can't even cover tuition. Even if Lissy is kind enough to help her get into an Ivy League school, she still won't have the money to live there. Lissy can't support her forever. At that moment, everyone in class believed Lisa completely. They were convinced she had the connections to get them into elite colleges. I had checked my results the night before. My grades, test scores, and application profile were strong enough that as long as I submitted everything properly, I had a real chance at the schools I wanted. When Lisa heard them, her eyes lit up. Actually, my family donates to scholarship programs all the time. We help students from poor families. Olivia, if you kneel and beg me right now, I might consider paying for your college. I clenched my fists and forced down the urge to slap her. No need. Anything that doesn't belong to you will come back to hurt you sooner or later if you keep pretending it does. Lisa's expression stiffened. Then, almost instantly, tears welled in her eyes. I was only trying to help you. If you got into a top college, your whole life could change. But if you don't appreciate it, fine. Seeing her cry, Ethan immediately stepped forward and kicked me in the knee. Olivia, don't be so ungrateful. Lissy is willing to sponsor you. That's the luckiest thing that could ever happen to someone like you. Kneel down and thank her. Exactly. You're already poor. What's the point of acting proud? Pride won't pay your tuition. Pain shot through my leg, but I forced myself to stay upright. I only glared at him. Everyone was watching me, waiting to see me humiliated. No thanks, I said. My family may not look rich to you, but we can still afford my education. And even if we couldn't, there are scholarships, grants, and student loans. There's always a way. Then I looked at the rest of them. As for you, your grades and applications aren't strong enough for those schools, and now you're counting on someone else's connections to save you. Be careful. A shortcut like that might cost you everything. I met Ethan at school. Because I was one of the strongest students in our grade, I often helped him study. Over time, we grew close. We had once agreed that even if we could not get into the same college, we would at least try to attend schools in the same city. But after Lisa transferred into our class senior year, everything changed. Her arrival was impossible to miss. From the first week, she made sure everyone knew she had money, designer bags, limited edition sneakers, a new luxury watch almost every few days. She never said outright that she was the billionaire's daughter, but she hinted at it constantly. She said school was only a formality for her. Her future had already been arranged. Her family knew people on admissions boards. If she wanted something, all it took was one phone call. Not only that, she handed out expensive gifts to our classmates as if they meant nothing. After a while, most of the class started orbiting around her. Ethan was one of them. Lisa gave him the newest game console on the market. From then on, he spent every spare minute gaming. His grades slipped, his practice test scores dropped, and he stopped caring about his college applications. I saw it happening and worried about him. I told him to put the console away for now and focus on school. Once applications were submitted and exams were over, he could play as much as he wanted, but he would not listen. Instead, he snapped at me for interrupting his game. Do you know how much this costs? It's worth more than anything you own. Get lost. In my last life, I could not stand watching him ruin himself, so I went to a teacher. Looking back now, I really had been pathetic. Someone like him deserved the consequences he chose. Ha 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 ha, Olivia, you're killing me. Ethan laughed as if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world. You really are naive. Do you have any idea how people at that level live? Getting us into schools like Harvard or Yale would take one call from Lisa's family. The other students laughed along with him. Exactly. Her family has been rich for 3 generations. That beats all your perfect grades and hard work. What's the point of being good at school? After graduation, you'll still end up working for people like her. People like you will never understand. The thing you spend your whole life fighting for might be something Lisa can get with one sentence. I smiled. Some of what they said was not wrong, but only if Lisa really was who she claimed to be. Then I hope you all get exactly what you're counting on, I said. After that, I walked out of school without looking back. 1 block away, I got into a Rolls-Royce parked by the curb. The car drove me all the way to a gated estate. When I got home, my parents were waiting for me. Sweetheart, I knew you could do it, my mother said, pulling me into a hug. Come see the gift I prepared for you. She placed a box in front of me. When she opened it, a diamond necklace lay inside, brilliant under the light. Then my father placed a set of documents beside it, his face full of pride. And this is for you too. It's an apartment near campus. Once you decide where you're going, you can live somewhere comfortable instead of squeezing into a dorm if you don't want to. Looking at my parents, alive and well, tears suddenly spilled from my eyes. Thank God, there was still time. When my parents saw me crying, they immediately asked what had happened. I glanced at the staff in the house and wiped my tears. Let's talk in the study. Once we were alone, I told them everything that had happened at school that day. When they heard Lisa's name, my parents froze for a few seconds. Lisa Hale? My mother said first. Isn't Hale the last name of one of our drivers? Among our household staff, only one person had that surname. My father's driver. That was right. Lisa was not the billionaire's daughter at all. Her father was only one of my father's drivers. My father had several drivers, and Lisa's father was the newest hire. He had never met me. Not long after he started working for us, he told my father that his daughter wanted to transfer schools. My father thought he seemed hardworking and reliable, so he helped arrange Lisa's transfer into my school. None of us expected that act of kindness to turn into this. That bastard, my father said, his face darkening. I'll fire him right now. I quickly stopped him. Exposing them now would only put them on guard. Besides, pretending to be rich was far from the only thing they had done. They bullied my daughter, my mother said coldly. They're going to pay for it. I nodded and told them my plan. After I finished, my mother patted my shoulder. All right, enough of them for tonight. Your materials are ready, aren't they? Make sure every application is submitted properly. And if you decide you don't want to stay here for college, that's fine too. I've already reached out to a few schools overseas. The latest admissions data and score ranges had come out the night before. Based on my grades, test scores, activities, and essays, my chances at the schools I wanted were strong. I had told my guidance counselor the good news right away. I had also asked indirectly about the rest of the class. For most of them, getting into schools like Harvard or Yale would be almost impossible, but they still had time to apply to solid colleges if they were realistic. As for Ethan and Lisa, their grades and applications were weak. Community college was probably the most realistic option for both of them. I opened my laptop, checked every application, uploaded the final materials, and submitted everything before the deadline. Then I chatted with my parents for a while and went to sleep. Early the next morning, our guidance counselor posted a long reminder in the senior class group chat. She told everyone to double-check their Common App accounts, submit their backup schools, and make sure they did not miss any deadlines. If they missed this round, they would either have to settle for schools with rolling admissions, go to community college, or wait another year to apply. No one replied in that group, but in another group chat without teachers or counselors, they were all mocking her for being rigid and old-fashioned. They said they did not need backup schools. Lisa would handle everything. A while later, Lisa posted a photo from an overseas resort. I'm abroad right now. Don't worry, everyone. I already talked to my dad. Just wait for your offers. The group chat exploded again. Everyone rushed to flatter her. I looked at the screen for a moment, then quietly left the chat. My applications were already submitted. My flight was booked. I was going overseas for a vacation. The application deadline arrived soon after. I was asleep in my hotel room when my mother called. Sweetheart, the deadline is tonight. Log in and check every application again. Don't let anything go wrong. I saw a story yesterday about a student whose college list was changed by a relative at the last minute. Just check yours one more time. I had never told anyone my username or password, so I thought it should be impossible for anyone to get into my account. Still, to be safe, I took out my laptop. But the moment I logged in, I froze. One of my top choice applications, the one I had already submitted, had somehow been withdrawn. In its place, someone had added a tiny for-profit college I had never even heard of. My heart nearly stopped. I silently thanked my mother over and over. I immediately restored the application, confirmed the submission status, and checked every document, every essay, and every school on my list. Then I called my parents. They were shocked too, but they quickly calmed down and told me to change my password, secure my email, and enable two-factor authentication on every account. A while later, my father sent me an IP address. The moment I saw it, I understood. It really was that bastard Ethan. He had tried to drag me down with him. Most of my old passwords were connected to my birthday. He must have guessed one of them and used it to get into my application account. Thank God my mother had reminded me in time. Even though I was overseas, I wanted to fly back immediately and tear him apart. I lost all interest in going anywhere that day. I stayed in the hotel and watched my application portals until the deadline passed, terrified that something else might go wrong. When the final deadline closed, I finally let out a breath. But before I could fully relax, my phone buzzed. Lisa had sent me 2 photos.
The first photo showed a confirmation page from the Common App. Across the top, in bright green letters, it read, "Application submitted successfully." Beneath it was a list of names. Ethan Brooks, Ryan Cole, Megan Foster. Nearly everyone in my class. The second photo showed Lisa sitting beside an infinity pool, holding a glass of juice. She wore oversized sunglasses and smiled lazily at the camera. A message followed. "See? I told you I handled everything. You were the only one too stubborn to trust me. Enjoy your safety school applications while we're all packing for Harvard." I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. She really believed she had fooled everyone. Or perhaps she had fooled herself. Because the page in that screenshot wasn't an admissions confirmation. It was only a payment receipt for submitting applications. Anyone who had actually applied to American universities knew the difference. The universities hadn't accepted them. They had merely accepted the application fee. I didn't reply. Instead, I saved both screenshots. Evidence. A week later I returned home. The moment I walked into school, the atmosphere had completely changed. Everywhere I looked, students were talking excitedly. "I've already picked out my Harvard dorm. My parents are planning a graduation trip around Boston. I heard Yale lets freshmen choose amazing seminars." Someone even said, "I'm not bothering to study for finals anymore. They're basically meaningless now." I walked past them without saying anything. Our guidance counselor looked exhausted. She had obviously tried to convince them again. But nobody listened. As I sat down, Ethan walked over with a grin. "Olivia." I didn't answer. "You should apologize to Lisa." I looked up. "For what?" "For doubting her." He proudly waved his phone. "My dad already told all our relatives I'm going to Yale." Several students clapped. Someone shouted, "Future Yale graduate." The classroom erupted into cheers. I almost pitied them. Almost. That afternoon, my father called. "We finished investigating." "What did you find?" His expression turned cold. "Lisa's father has been stealing." My eyes narrowed. "What?" "He wasn't taking money. He was taking information." My father slid several printed photographs across his desk. There were security camera images. Lisa's father had been secretly photographing documents inside my father's office whenever he drove him to meetings. Family schedules. Donation certificates. Letters from universities. Even photographs taken during charity galas. My mother frowned. "So that's how Lisa knew the names of certain university trustees." My father nodded. "She memorized information from stolen documents. Then she exaggerated everything. If someone heard her mention the dean of an Ivy League school by name, they'd naturally assume she actually knew him." I slowly pieced everything together. She hadn't built her image through wealth. She had built it through stolen fragments of my family's life. My father's face hardened. "The police already have enough evidence for corporate theft. But if we arrest him now, your classmates will only think Lisa is a victim." I nodded. "I know. They need to see the truth themselves." My mother smiled. "Exactly. The higher they climb, the harder they'll fall." Weeks passed. Final exams ended. Graduation approached. Every day, Lisa became more arrogant. She began giving everyone instructions. "Don't worry about financial aid. My dad will arrange scholarships. I'll introduce everyone to alumni. Just prepare your passports." My classmates practically worshipped her. Whenever someone looked uncertain, Ethan immediately defended her. "Do you think billionaires have time to lie to ordinary people?" One afternoon he cornered me outside school. "You'll regret this." "What?" "Refusing Lisa's kindness. When we all graduate from Harvard and Yale, you'll still be stuck in some ordinary college." I looked him straight in the eyes. "No. You'll regret believing a lie simply because it sounded better than reality." His smile disappeared. For just a second. I saw uncertainty. Only for a second. Then he laughed again. "Keep comforting yourself." A month later. The first admission decisions began arriving. One by one, students opened their email accounts. And one after another, their smiles disappeared. At first, nobody panicked. There must be some mistake. I probably opened the wrong portal. They're probably reviewing Lisa's special admissions separately. Every excuse imaginable filled the classroom. Then Ethan logged into his account in front of everyone. His confident smile froze. There, in bold letters, was a single word. Denied. His face went pale. No. This can't be right. He refreshed the page. Again. 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 The answer never changed. Denied. The room gradually fell silent. One after another, students checked their own accounts. Denied. 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 A few had been waitlisted. Most had outright rejections. Not a single acceptance from Harvard or Yale. The confidence that had filled the classroom for months vanished in less than 10 minutes. Someone suddenly stood up. Where's Lisa? She isn't here today. Call her. Immediately, phones came out. Dozens of calls. None were answered. Messages flooded the class chat. Lizzie, what's happening? You said your dad had already handled everything. Why were we rejected? 5 minutes later, Lisa finally replied. Calm down. These are just the public decisions. My family's admissions process is different. Wait a few more days. The classroom breathed a collective sigh of relief. See? I knew it. I almost had a heart attack. Only I quietly packed my books. I knew she was buying time. Nothing more. 3 days passed. Then another week. No acceptance letters came. Instead, regular admission deadlines closed. Enrollment deposits became due. The realization slowly dawned on everyone. There were no secret offers. No hidden admissions process. No billionaire pulling strings. They had been rejected. Every one of them. Our guidance counselor called an emergency meeting. When she walked into the classroom, her face was filled with disappointment. I warned all of you. You ignored every reminder. She placed a thick stack of papers on the desk. I contacted every college whose deadline hadn't passed. There are only a handful left accepting late applications. A student raised a trembling hand. What about the universities we originally wanted? The counselor shook her head. The deadlines passed months ago. They're gone. Another student burst into tears. My parents spent years saving for me to go to college. I didn't even submit applications. Others followed. The classroom dissolved into sobbing. Some buried their heads on their desks. Others stared blankly at their phones. Even the boys who had mocked me the loudest looked completely lost. Ethan suddenly stood up. This is Olivia's fault. Everyone looked at him. If she hadn't kept doubting Lisa wouldn't have been under so much pressure. I almost laughed. Even now. He refused to admit he had made his own choices. The counselor slammed her hand onto the desk. Enough. Her voice echoed through the room. Olivia submitted her applications. Olivia reminded all of you to have backup schools. I reminded all of you. Your parents reminded many of you. You ignored every warning because you wanted an easier path. She looked around the room, her eyes full of disappointment. Stop blaming everyone else for decisions you made yourselves. Not a single student dared speak. That afternoon, the police arrived at school. 2 officers walked straight into the principal's office. Behind them, a middle-aged man in handcuffs. Lisa's father. The entire hallway erupted into whispers. What happened? Why is Lisa's dad being arrested? Before anyone could speculate further, another police car stopped outside. Lisa stepped out. Her face was completely white. She wasn't wearing designer clothes anymore. Just an ordinary hoodie and jeans. As the officers escorted her toward the building, every pair of eyes followed. For the first time since she transferred, she looked like exactly what she had always been. A liar. Lisa was taken into the principal's office alongside her father. An hour later, the school called an emergency assembly. The principal stood on stage with a grim expression. After an investigation, it has been confirmed that Lisa Hale repeatedly impersonated the daughter of a billionaire while attending this school. Gasps spread through the auditorium. Her father, a former employee of the Grant family, illegally obtained confidential documents and photographs from his employer. Lisa used that information to convince classmates that her family had influence over university admissions. The principal paused. There is no evidence that any university ever promised admission to any student. The auditorium fell completely silent. Every student slowly turned toward Lisa. She stood at the side of the stage, unable to lift her head. Someone whispered, "So, she lied?" Another answered, "All of it." Then the whispers became shouting. "You ruined our futures. You said we'd all get into Harvard. I never submitted my backup applications because of you. You promised." Lisa burst into tears. I never forced anyone. I only said I would try. You all chose to believe me." For once, she was telling the truth. She had lied. But every one of them had chosen to gamble their own future. No one had forced them to ignore their teachers, parents, and counselors. No one except themselves. The police led Lisa and her father away. This time, no one tried to stop them. Weeks later, my own admission results arrived. I opened the email with shaking hands. "Congratulations." I smiled before I even reached the second line. I had been admitted to my dream university with a generous scholarship. My parents hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "We're proud of you," my father whispered. Not because of the university. Because I had trusted my own hard work instead of chasing empty promises. The rest of my classmates faced very different futures. A few managed to enroll in community colleges with late admissions. Some took a gap year to apply again. Others entered the workforce immediately. Their plans had been delayed by at least a year. Ethan begged several colleges to reconsider his applications. Every appeal was rejected. His grades simply weren't competitive anymore. The expensive game console Lisa had given him sat untouched in his room. By the time he realized what it had really cost him, it was far too late. Several months later, I heard the outcome of the criminal case. Lisa's father pleaded guilty to theft of confidential business information, fraud-related offenses connected to his deception, and other employment crimes. He was sentenced to prison. Lisa, as a minor when many of the events occurred, avoided prison but received a juvenile record, was expelled from school, and was ordered to perform community service while paying restitution where the court found she had financially benefited from her deception. The Hale family lost everything they had gained through pretending to be wealthy. Ironically, they ended up with far less than they had before the lies began. One rainy afternoon, just before leaving for college, I ran into Ethan outside a convenience store. He looked thinner. Older. The confidence that had once filled every word was gone. He stared at me for a long time before speaking. "I'm sorry." I looked at him calmly. "Sorry for what?" "For believing Lisa. For treating you the way I did. For blaming you." He hesitated. "If I'd listened to you, my life would have been different." I shook my head. "No. Your life would have been different if you had listened to yourself. I never made your choices. You did." His eyes reddened. "But, can you forgive me?" I remembered another life. The poison. My parents collapsing beside my body. His cold smile as he watched us die. "I don't hate you anymore," I said quietly. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Then I walked past him without looking back. This time, he didn't try to stop me. As the plane lifted into the clouds a few days later, I looked down at the city growing smaller beneath me. In my last life, I had died trying to save people who refused to save themselves. In this life, I finally understood something. You can warn someone about the edge of a cliff. You can even build a fence. But if they choose to climb over it, you cannot fall in their place. Hard work may not guarantee success. But blind faith in shortcuts almost always guarantees regret. I closed my eyes and smiled. This life finally belonged to me.